Hey, what's up, everybody? This is D, MKD5A Media, back again with another movie review for you. I'm going to try to get through this real quick. It's going to be difficult because I actually got a lot that I'd like to say about it, but we'll see how this goes, all right? I'm going to be talking about Halloween 2018. Just recently came out on home release, so I went ahead and rented it. Wanted to watch it back when it came out in October. Didn't get around to watching it, but I did watch rewatch. I did rewatch the original Halloween 1978. Did a review for that. That's up on the channel. I think very highly of that film. It's always been a favorite of mine when it comes to the horror genre. And I haven't seen all of the Halloween sequels, but I've seen enough where, I feel like I can talk a little bit about the whole Halloween franchise and this film in particular, Halloween 2018. So I'm going to try to get through this quick. Like I said, some pros. I'm going to start off with those. I love Jamie Lee Curtis's character in this, as far as her version of Laurie Strode in this film, because if we got to be honest, she's been in, she was in H2O, she made an appearance in Resurrection. People have been kind of treating this like this is her return to the series or to the franchise for the first time since 1978 or something, when she's actually been a part of some of the films that were stinkers. Not saying it's her fault they were stinkers, but and not to say that H2O was necessarily a stinker. I might have to actually rewatch that, because I did see that. That was more of a sort of a run-of-the-mill type slasher in a way, where it wasn't, anything classic or anything, but it was a watchable slasher. And also Kevin Williams, is it Williamson? I can't remember if it's Kevin Williams or Kevin Williamson, the guy that kind of started the resurgence of the slasher with all of the Scream franchises and stuff like that. He had his hands in H2O, but I think he wasn't credited for his work with that. So that's what I read. I don't know how reliable all of that is, but I read it at a somewhat reliable source. Anyways, so she has been in these films, but they're treating this like it's her return to the film for the first time, in 40 years or whatever, when that's kind of not the case. But I do kind of get why they're doing that, because this film is really supposed to be a film that's more a part of the franchise and meant to be a part of the franchise than a lot of the other sequels. In theory, this film is a return to, a Halloween franchise that the true, quote-unquote, true fans of the original and whatnot can be proud of. So I get kind of why it's being, her role in this is being looked at, and I'll say rightfully so, because she gives a great performance, and I love her character in this. I love how prepared she is. I love how she's on the hunt in a way. She's hunting Michael in more of this movie than he is hunting her. She spends more of this movie looking for him and thinking about him than he is looking for her and hunting her in a way. I mean, obviously he does get on the trail in a way. He does get her scent after a while and is trying to get at her, but at least from how I interpreted some things, I don't know that he's just, in the psych ward thinking about her and hoping to get out to get to her, if you understand what I'm saying. So, but I liked how prepared and how armed she was in this movie. She was still traumatized, but she garnered some level of strength out of that. She really showed a final girl. You know what I mean by final girl, that kind of horror cliche term or whatever you want to call it. She was a classic final girl, one of the more iconic final girls of all time, but she learned from being that final girl to be somebody that's prepared, and you can see that in the way she tricks out her home and learns how to shoot, has lots of artillery. She's armed to the teeth, and has, when she's going around the home checking the each room, and then when she's done checking it, she, you know, makes those gates come down to close that room off, you know, eliminating that element of surprise and stealth attack from him if he's in the, you know, when he's in her home and stuff like that. So just, she did some things that were very, like, I liked as far as showing a former final girl who has learned from what happened in the past in a way. Like, I really appreciated how they did that. And, you know, you could compare her to somebody like Chief Brody from Jaws 2, from the Jaws 1 and Jaws 2. From Jaws 1 to Jaws 2, he's obviously traumatized in Jaws 2 by what happened in Jaws 1. But he handles that traumatization for most of the movie in such a really weak way. Like, he's just scared and paranoid, rightfully so, but he doesn't channel that into anything productive in terms of drawing strength. You know, he doesn't, you know, build up a tricked out boat with the harpoon gun on it and a titanium hull and you know, I don't even know if they do that, but you know, he didn't do anything. He didn't build up anything to defend himself. He just stayed traumatized and running around on the beach being scared. The most he could do is yell to other people about how there's a shark possibly in the water. You know, you compare and contrast that to Laurie Strode, who was paranoid and traumatized, but she took that and built a structure, you know, a fort-like home for herself. She built you know, traps and stuff at home. She bought weapons. She got proficient in shooting. She took steps to be strong and to defend herself. So I really appreciated that from her character, especially after watching Jaws 2 and watching how Chief Brody was handling his trauma. So that was a positive. And then obviously the movie was very well shot. The implementation of the classic score, the classic John Carpenter Halloween score. I always love to hear that in these type of films. There was an increased level of violence and brutality as well. I'm gonna put that in the category of being a positive, although there's another side to that which I'll get into. But there's some brutal, just like after shots and some very grisly visuals of victims that have been dispatched by Michael. And you compare that to the original, which wasn't very gory at all and had a very low body count. But this works in this, you know, this 2018, the gore in this, it works, and it is effective visually for the film. I also have to take time out to give major props to the mask design, the Michael Myers mask. This is the best Michael Myers mask I've seen since the first one. The first one and this one are the two best Michael Myers masks. There's been a few Halloween sequels and stuff where the masks looked really like comedic in some. I know in H2O, I didn't like the mask in H2O. Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna be able to go into specifics about each one, but I know for sure I wasn't a fan of the mask in H2O, especially in comparison to this one and the mask in the original. And there's been a few other sequels where the mask has looked kind of shoddy, kind of goofy, and not completely, you know, not completely in alignment with, you know, the original, that's the standard bearer. Now I'm gonna get into some of the more negative type areas, or the so-so-y type areas where it could be a negative or it could be a positive depending on where you're at with it. But so let me quickly jump into this. This Halloween 2018 is definitely more violent and more brutal than the original. The original is still scarier though. This one is not. Generally not very scary to me. I think there's a few elements that lead to it being that way. I'm gonna touch on them. I'm gonna try to touch briefly on them because I could spend a whole lot more time talking about some of these points. But one, you see a whole lot more of Michael in this than like I haven't seen all of the sequels, but I've never seen this much of Michael before. In terms of, you see the skin on his forearms, you see him, you know, he's in a t-shirt, obviously might be kind of in the background of some shots and stuff like that, but it's still, to me, it's humanizing him as they show more. You know, you see his skull, his head, the side of his head, his eye, you know, his feet, you know, early on. So it's like there is a humanization, and I'm not sure if they're going for that or not, but there is a humanization of him when, for me, the more you see of him. Whereas I'm the type, I liked, even in the first one, I didn't like when you saw that brief moment when he had his mask off or whatever. To me, then they showed too much of his face. You know what I mean? So, I don't like when there's extended time and extended visuals of him without the mask. That, to me, that takes away from that kind of mythology of the shape, quote unquote. So also you got to take into account whatchamacallit, Laurie Strode, her strength. For me personally, that's who I was invested in. She was kind of the protagonist for me. I think some people might actually see her granddaughter as the protagonist or the one to be invested in. But for me, it was Laurie Strode, and that, you know, she was the one whose kind of shoulder I was, you know, you would sit on, and you're going for the ride with her. You're following what she's doing, and she's the one that you're like hoping figures it out, solves the problem or whatever. And so, and because of her strength, and she was basically hunting Michael. She was looking for Michael. She was, and it was all believable for me. So there wasn't really a fear of Michael to be had, because it felt like he was about to be killed, and you know, and it was believable, you know. So it wasn't the same kind of ominous, dreadful type vibe as the first one. This was just very much more like a revenge flick type vibe, and so it wasn't as scary, or even scary at all, in comparison to the first one. Now that doesn't have to be a negative, because I mean, we all like a good revenge flick. Everybody likes a little gore and whatnot, so maybe it didn't have to be truly scary, and this could have just been sort of like some popcorn, you know, enjoyable flick with stuff that fans of the original can relate to certain things they see, but it's not really truly meant to be some classic horror film or whatever, and that's fine. But I gotta say, when I want to see one of these films, I do want there to be some tension and like a level of fear. I do want it to be kind of, you know, scary. You know, otherwise you could just do you could tell any type of kind of action, you know, suspense, revenge flick type deal. But this, so I don't know, and maybe for some folks this was scary. I've heard people talk about this being scary. There's moments in this film that I've heard other reviewers talk about being truly scary and frightening, and some of them weren't for me. The closet scare thing, that didn't do it for me, because that was in the trailer. So I don't know how anybody got shocked by him coming out of that closet, because they show that in the trailer, or in one of the TV spots. So that wasn't some like really great scene for me. But other people talked about it like it was just like this really scary scene. So, you know, I guess it's to each their own. But there were things that just were underwhelming, and you got to take into account too, because I didn't see it when everybody else saw it. I had all these months and weeks or whatever to hear other people talk about it and hear other people's opinions. So some stuff can seem overhyped, and then other stuff can seem like it was underhyped, you know. So I had time to hear a whole lot of chatter about this, which makes it easy to kind of have an expectation or whatever of certain stuff. So with that said, it wasn't a very scary movie, but that might not necessarily be a bad thing. Now, some other stuff that's kind of complicates some things is this movie is supposed to replace all the movies that came after Halloween 1, which means it replaces Halloween 2, which is a movie I actually kind of liked, but I haven't seen it in a while, so I might have to rewatch it. But I remember liking Halloween 2, and now obviously since Halloween 2018 replaces that, they take out the idea that Laurie and Michael are siblings, which I'm completely fine with. I was never really married to that idea in the first place. But since 2018 is the true sequel, quote unquote, what that means is Michael really only killed 5 people. You know, at the beginning of the Halloween 2018, at the beginning of this story, he's only killed 5 people, at least in the murder, you know, the massacre, quote unquote, that he became famous for, which is, you know, don't mean to sound crass, is rather tame for you know, legendary serial killer, especially if you're talking about you know, being in 2018 and stuff like that. So in they're speaking about him in this film with such, like, he has such a mythology built up about him, like he's just this crazy legend, when some of his work seems rather underwhelming by, you know, the standards of you know, folks that were operating even in the 70s, you know, during that same 1970s, you know, time period, and then obviously going on into, you know, now all the crazy shit that be happening. So it was just, there was kind of a imbalance. It didn't really necessarily make sense how much on a pedestal he was, considering his work was rather tame compared to, you know, other monsters and shit that have operated. But that might just be kind of something we're all used to kind of thinking and talking about Michael Myers and such as legendary status, that it's kind of hard not to implement that and put it into the movie, you know, where the people around the town speak about him in the same way. Because I guess it's kind of hard to have Michael Myers depicted on screen as just some nobody 2-bit criminal, you know what I mean? You have to have that legend attached to him, even if when you really dig deep and look at it and compare it to other things that have happened, it's kind of an underwhelming you know, one, once you erase all the hundreds of killings he did after Halloween 1, that before Halloween 2018 came in to change things. So anyways, my point being, there's an imbalance in how they talk about him and then the work that he actually put in. So overall, I'm going to give this Halloween 2018, at one point I had in my head, I had a score of 7 out of 10. I think I'm going to stick with that. I'm going to stick with a 7 out of 10 for this. Just I feel pretty comfortable with that score because I was entertained by this film. I enjoyed it. I do feel it's a very worthy entry into the franchise. As far as, you know, if I comparing it to Halloween 2, I'd have to rewatch Halloween 2 to really say if I think it's the second best movie in the. Obviously, it's not better than the original Halloween, and that's nothing to be sad about, because I mean, if something's a classic, it's a classic for a reason. It has its status, you know, for a reason. So for me, it's not better than the original Halloween, which means it's battling with Halloween 2 for me, battling with Halloween 2 for second place. And I got to rewatch Halloween 2 before I just accurately make that comparison. So at the very least, Halloween 2018 is at least in the top 3 of the movies of the, you know, in the franchise. It might be in the top 2. Well, there's a good chance it's in the top 2, because I feel like Halloween 2 might not have aged very well. But I gotta rewatch it. I really gotta rewatch it. That's probably gonna be a video coming up. So final score for Halloween 2018, 7 out of 10. It's a must watch if you're a fan of the franchise. A definite must watch if you're a fan of the franchise. If you're just a horror fan in general, you're probably somewhat connected to the franchise, so even then I would still probably definitely recommend it. But if you're a fan of Halloween specifically, that movie franchise specifically, it's a must watch. It does, I don't know about bringing too much new to the table just in general for the for the genre as a whole, but I will say Laurie Strode is a very a heroine, a hero to be appreciated in this one, just in my opinion, because I'm so tired of seeing I'm really tired of seeing people be weak in these films, you know, just and not learn from previous situations. And you know, you always watch these films and say, you know, well, this is what you know, I'd go get this, we board up this, have cameras over here, we, you know, just all the precautions, you know, we'd have canned items, we'd have food stocked up, we'd have ammunition stocked up. Why are you not prepared for this and that? You know, you always say this for these characters that are in these kind of crazy life and death situations and things like this. And it's nice to see, I always enjoy seeing characters that are prepared and are taking the situation serious and are like putting in the training and like really trying to you know, survive and defend themselves, you know what I mean? So I enjoyed that in this movie. So okay, that's it. It's a long ass review. I do apologize for it. I don't even look forward to editing this because it feels like it's going to take a long time to edit, but we'll see what happens. Thanks for watching. Final score 7 out of 10. Halloween 2018. Like, comment, subscribe. Did you like it? Do you like the Halloween franchise? Do you like Friday the 13th, that franchise? I've been really getting an itching to watch like the the Friday the 13th franchise, like just beginning to end all the way through. I mean, that's maybe not all of them, because some of them, like, I'm not really trying to see Jason X and all that type of shit, but like at least the first 4 or 5 of them or so. I've been thinking I might need to watch those because I haven't really. Friday the 13th, those are some movies that I haven't really just truly watched them. I've caught bits and pieces of a few of them, but I can't grade them yet. And you know, to be able to speak on something, you gotta watch it, right? So I might have to watch those. But for now, Halloween 2018, 7 out of 10. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe.
Audio Jungle.